Hi, I'm Randy Reid, Executive Director of the National Lighting Bureau, and we are honored today to have our inaugural Tesla Awards. Originally, we were presenting these awards at Light Fair, but with Light Fair being canceled, we are presenting them through Zoom, the next best thing. I'd like to introduce Mary Beth Gotti. Mary Beth is a Director at Large for the National Lighting Bureau, and she has been in charge of the Tesla Awards. Mary Beth?
Well, thanks so much. And it was really a pleasure sharing this first Tesla Awards. And, you know, when you think, what's the intent of yet another lighting awards program? And, you know, you think about the National Lighting Bureau and what the main tagline was high benefit lighting. We want to provide and give recommendations and examples of how lighting benefits people, how it benefits the environment. So what we wanted to do above and beyond that is feature projects that promote collaboration between the various stakeholders. We also wanted to keep it simple. Let's make it really easy to submit projects. They can be new construction, they can be retrofit. We can open it up to anyone who's involved involved in designing a lighting project. It can be a small project, it can be a complex one, you know, so let's just come up with projects that demonstrate high value, high benefit lighting, and then let's try to share best practices. How can we look at the experience and what worked, maybe what didn't work, any surprises, and document it and pass it on. And so that was really the intent of the Tesla Awards, and we want to thank you very much for participating in this inaugural program. It's my pleasure to award the Tesla Awards to Vancouver Waterfront Park, Grant Street Pier and Plaza, and that's to Kevin Frary, Charles Stone, and Danielle Kelly of Fisher Marantz Stone. So again, congratulations. And I just want to introduce the award and then let you talk more about it. But a really beautiful project, elegant in its simplicity. The Grant Street Pier provides a dramatic and dynamic visitor experience. As the heart of a 32-acre development and 10-acre waterfront park, the Grant Street Pier provides a unique and intimate public gathering space within the heart of a revitalized downtown Vancouver. So visitor experience and views were very critical in this particular project. So again, congratulations on your award and on this project. And maybe just to get the conversation started here, but you mentioned that coordination with the artist, the landscape architect, the structural engineer, and the electrical engineer was very critical to the success of the lighting. So any particular parts of this process that you could share or that you want to talk about?
Well, the project cantilevers 90 feet out over the Columbia River. And one of the main things to do was create a pleasant environment for pedestrians when they'd come out here and enjoy it. So we didn't want to do anything that would obstruct with views, but the park was to be used at all hours of the day, so we had to make sure it was a pleasant and safe nighttime experience. So a lot of the lighting of the pier itself is very low level, meaning it's close to the walking surface, so that when people go out on the pier, they have these beautiful views and vistas looking south over the river towards Oregon. And lighting the pier or the mast of the pier that holds all the cable stays and keeps the pier supported was a pretty significant structural undertaking. And so you have to be careful about where you start poking holes in that structure to mount light fixtures to. So we had to work with all of these different disciplines, particularly the artist Larry Kirkland, whose sort of vision and design of the pier and the cable stay was to make sure at night it really represented something special in the heart of this park setting.
When you go to this place and have dinner outside and look across the river to what is Portland, right there in front of you is this thing, this pier and this mast that's all lit up quite interestingly. So when you go home that night and next Friday night comes around, hey honey, let's go back to that place we were last week, that thing, that time. It is that kind of an experience. And when you see it at sunset, and Kevin has done a beautiful thing. It's very easy to watch the sunset, the balance of the brightnesses of the fixtures and the surfaces where lighting do not interfere with your view of the river, which is a spectacular thing in itself. And should you happen to live across the river on the water, there's actually a trailer park. Or you could go by boat along the river and look at this thing. Kevin has cleverly put lights under the pier, which give it a sense of floating over the water. And so you're once again struck by the whole development and this thing, this interesting art piece, really, designed by an artist called Larry Kirkland that we've worked with for more than 20 years. So it makes a nice story, and it is just this really beautiful thing in the evening.
Wonderful. You noted that there were various sustainability and environmental stewardship aspects that had to be considered over the course of the project. And, can you talk about some of the key challenges here?
The two main challenges were the fish and the birds. So since it sticks out over the Columbia, people are very sensitive to salmon habitat. So we had to be very mindful in our lighting approach to ensure we weren't putting any light down onto the surface of the river. So Charles mentioned that we had this strategy of putting light under the pier to create this floating effect, but we had to do some pretty careful studies and calculations and simulations to make sure that the lights that are under the pier aren't shining any light onto the water that might distract the salmon or other fish that are migrating, looking to spawn, whatever it is. So that's kind of the lower level. And then above the pier, because we are uplighting the mast, the Audubon Society got involved and was very concerned about how these uplights might impact the migration of birds. And so we had a couple of meetings with them. We shared some information with them, but really the luminaires that we're using and the optics that they have are very precise, and it's all very controlled really to only light the pier and the mast. So there's not much spill light. And we also worked with the engineer in terms of controls and a schedule of operation. So the lights on the mast that are uplighting and contributing somewhat to light pollution, we're careful and make sure those turn off at some point, so we're not just putting light up into the atmosphere. There were, of course, other sustainability goals. This is a new development, so we were mindful about energy use and things like that. But the birds and the fish were the two main sort of ecological aspects as it related to sustainability.
How did you get that marvelous picture looking down on everything?
I gotta get a drone. I gotta get a drone. Our photographer has a drone.
It's just perfect. It really makes the whole thing go together. It was really the thing that really did it for me. And yeah, you could tell that the uplight had been controlled, that everything was aimed properly, that the brightness balance was good. All of this good stuff was really captured in these pictures. So a remarkable job and remarkable pictures to go with it.
Thank you. It was, I would add that the drone picture, the view from above, is really interesting because it shows how well the project came together. The pier is really in the middle of the park, but the park was designed before the pier was, and then the plaza that's just behind the pier was designed after that. So it's this interesting phasing or sequencing of smaller projects within this overall larger park. But when you see it from above, when you look at from one end to the other now, it really does feel like a seamless
Kevin,
design.
You've touched on one of the challenges, which somehow it's a formula for trouble, but it wasn't trouble for us, which is the public-private partnership aspect of this. There's a private corporation, the Graymore Corporation, who is our ultimate client for much of the project. And the project has other parts to it. There is entirely another art piece that you just get a clue of in the drone video, actually, or in the drone shots. But the public park is, I forget, is it 40 acres? I don't remember. And so that connects to more public parkway and jogging paths that go along the side of the river. So there are many pieces that come together, and of course that works to this particular project's advantage, which becomes a bit of a focal point.
I noticed that you picked 4,000 K for the mast floodlights, but 3,000 K is all this surround. How did you come up? Did you just do some field tests to see how 4,000 K would look, or any, how did you come up with that decision?
Well, everything in the park was designed to be 3,000 Kelvin. And so we thought everything really in the pedestrian realm out on the pier through that boardwalk should fit in with that character of the park. But the mast was always this artistic element that was something different. And so we thought we intentionally wanted to play with color temperature to try and differentiate it a little bit. We did do, it's hard to do a mock-up of something of that scale, but we did get a few different fixture samples in the office with different color temperature and played around and see how they'd look together. But it was an intentional thing to try and create a little bit of difference and play with your eye a little bit, that the mast would be cooler than the other things around it.
It's also, there's an animate, inanimate aspect to that. Quite obviously, this was also happening at the same time as the roiling controversy over the color of light in the external realm, what is good for people and plants. And this was not directly influencing the project, but that discussion was happening in these same years, which is sort of an interesting aside to the project. But I also think the animate, inanimate, so uplighting the steel gives it, to me, it emotionally gives it a crispness, which is a benefit to understanding the project.
I have one question about how did you keep in mind about the pollutions and dark sky and the rest of the other element that apply to these kind of projects actually?
Some of that had to do with, obviously, with fixture selection. We did keep it in mind during design. The only light that actually goes up is the uplighting of the mast. But a lot of the rest of it had to do with the fixture selection, detailing things. All of the lights around the pier are integrated into the vertical stanchions of the guardrail and are pretty well shielded just to put light down onto the walking surface. And that, frankly, that had a lot to do not only with the dark skies that you bring up, but also, as I was mentioning earlier, trying to make sure that there wasn't light going into people's eyes so they could still go out on the pier and enjoy these beautiful views that you have at sunset.
It was kind of interesting that the site falls within the flight path of the Portland International Airport. So the FCC had to bless the design as well, right?
That's right. Yeah.
It's true, but our wattage is really low. I don't know the total wattage of uplight, but come on, it's half a dozen fixtures are doing the uplight work on the mast.
Kevin, on the uplight with the mast at 4,000 K, and I think you said 3,000 K on the other, did you use the same manufacturer for both the 3,000 K and the 4,000 K? And if so, who was the manufacturer?
We didn't. We had basically 3 fixtures on the whole project. The uplights, the 4,000 K uplights were from Urco. The lights that are integrated into the guardrail of the pier were from Cole. And the lights under the pier that light the supporting wall were from Elliptipar. And those are 3,000 K as well.
Got it.
And on this part of the project, that's it. Yeah.
I'm assuming that you have sort of time clock control over the lighting. Is it on some kind of schedule, and do you actually, as the sun goes down, do you reduce the output of the fixtures at all?
Good question. It is all on a time clock control. By the time, it was interesting, by the time we got involved with the design for the pier, the electrical system in the park had already been designed, and it had been designed with no dimming. And we weren't able to add it to the pier for budget reasons. But all of the different fixture types are basically on their own zone. So, for example, I think it's at midnight. It might be a little before. The mast uplights turn off. but the lights that are lighting the footpath of the pier stay on. So it's a fairly simple on-off switching control, but it is controlled by a time clock, and there are sort of different scenes that we help set up that change over the course of the night.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Tour is a beautiful project.
Again, congratulations on winning the Tesla Award this year, and we look forward to seeing more submissions from you in 2021. So again, thank you so much for your participation.
Thank you. We hope to be back.
Thank you.
Thank you.